Hi, hello, and welcome to another basics cooking class. My name is Sam, and I'm a culinary mentor and chef here with the Basic Market. Um, Today we're looking at making some nice berry scones. We'll be putting together this recipe and talking a little bit about some of our products which we're using today. So let's have a look at that. These are cream scones, so we're going to be using some of our Lulabelle's brand heavy cream, which is just really, really good heavy cream. It whips up amazingly quick to make like whipping cream. It's a great product. And then we're also going to be using some Lulabelle's unsalted butter. We're using unsalted butter. I like to use unsalted butter for most cooking applications, just because then you can control the sodium. And of course, with baked goods and cookies and scones and things like this, we really want to have a handle on the amount of salt content. We're also going to be using some Gwendolyn's eggs, and that's another one of our brands within our umbrella of Wild Rose Foods, which is our basics brand. So the Gwendolyn's eggs, they're produced right here in the Willamette Valley, and organic, free range, and really pretty. You can see they come brown, green, and sometimes freckled, and they're delicious and fresh. So we'll be using one of those eggs, and we're going to be separating that egg and using it in its entirety. All right. So if you have any questions during this webinar, go ahead and shoot them at us, and I'll answer them as best I can. We have someone taking the questions, and they'll relay them to me. Questions, comments, anything like that, go ahead. And if you think of things after the class, you're welcome to send us an email, and we'll get back to you. We love talking about food and ingredients and technique. And let's do that stuff right now involving these scones. So this is a scone recipe which I put together. And as I mentioned before, I really wanted to incorporate the cream and the butter and the eggs. And so all those things are in there, and that all adds some nutritional aspects and some flavor and some compositional aspects in binding and leavening. So scones originated in Scotland in the 1500s, and this is that we're recognizing that we're using some oat flour, and we're using some rolled oats. And originally scones were made with oat and oat flour, and then all-purpose flour started becoming the prominent ingredient in the scones as they moved throughout Britain and Europe, and then all over the world. And then we'll look at a couple different shapes too. We'll play around with the shape a little bit, but I'm making generally with this recipe, I've been making these nice big and kind of triangle scones. So scones are great, with a cup of coffee is a popular way to enjoy them here in the US. In Britain, they have the high tea, right? And the cream tea, where you get some scones and some finger sandwiches and some things like that. A little clotted cream, which is a cream that's just been reduced to where it's this wonderful, thick, spreadable kind of cream. A lot of jam, and that's how they enjoy them in England. And anyway, let's get down to business, right? So we're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And you kind of want to be utilizing your middle rack for this. You want them to brown on the top but not burn, and the same with the bottom. So kind of right in the middle, your middle rack of your oven is where you're going to want to be placing the sheet pan. So you have a sheet pan, and I am using a little bit of parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you just lightly oil the sheet pan. You can spray it or just rub a little bit of neutral oil like canola oil on there, and that will keep your scones from sticking to the sheet pan. All right, so a zester is a handy thing here. You can also just use a cheese grater. Just use the small grate like on the box grater, and then you're going to have one lemon. So I always rinse the lemon off, give it a little wash before I zest. Zesting, simply taking off the outer layer of the rind here on the lemon. So we're going to go ahead and zest right into a bowl. And this is a really neat technique often employed in baking, where you add sugar. We're going to be adding granulated sugar to the lemon zest, and the sugar absorbs all that great citrus oil, and then you get a really nice lemon infused sugar, and that puts that lemon flavor all throughout the scone. So very nice. Okay, so then you've got a lemon that is nice, good and ready to squeeze the juice out of for something else, make some lemonade or something. And we have a lot of great zest here. And then here I have 1/3 cup of sugar pre-measured. And you'll notice on the recipe, by the way, this recipe is available online at our website, basicsmarket.com, where you'll find other classes like this, which have been archived, as well as some videos of some skills which tie into a lot of the recipes that we have, that we've developed for our recipe cards, which are, as I mentioned, online as well as in the stores, and you can find these are all free and in the stores if you want to browse recipes and take some home. These are really beautiful and great recipes. Okay, so back to the recipe. I have the 1/3 cup of sugar here, and then I have a tablespoon also, which we'll be utilizing for the top of the scones. All right, so you just want to put that sugar on top of your lemon zest and give that a twizzle with your fingers. And what you're looking for here is a sand-like consistency. And so just, it'll kind of turn into wet sand there. And you'll really start to get the aroma, get all that nice citrus oil going. And it's very appetizing. Okay, so there's our lemon sugar. And I'm just going to set this aside for a moment. And then you'll need another good sized bowl, a medium to large bowl. And we're going to put our dry ingredients in this bowl. So with baking, I like to get all the dry ingredients together, and I'll use a whisk to whisk it up. And there it is, that one item. Every class, there's one thing I have to forget, and it was the whisk. But a whisk is a great way to really incorporate all those dry ingredients. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I designed this recipe to work with gluten-free flour also, and I'm using the Bob's Red Mill, which is our local, in the Portland area, our local mill. Some really great products come out of the Bob's Red Mill, including a gluten-free flour. The 1-to-1 works really well for this recipe, and you don't have to change anything. We will you add a little more cream, but sometimes I add a touch more cream even with the regular flour. But I have found that when I do the straight across trades with the from all-purpose to gluten-free flour, I end up adding a little more liquid. For whatever reason, the gluten-free flour really absorbs the liquid. Okay, so we have 1.5 cups of flour, and then put some oat flour in here. And oat flour is naturally gluten-free. And oat flour, I like baking with the oat flour a lot. It adds a really good sweetness, sort of depth of flavor, as well as great nutrition, some fiber and like that. So a little, but I really enjoy the flavor, and it brings a different kind of texture as well to the scones. And we have a question, yes? Wow, so the question is, how much flour would I use with almond flour? Almond flour, I've worked with it a bit, and it's a little different in that it's denser. I'd go ahead and use that 1.5 cups and see where it lands. But yeah, I'd stick to the 1.5 cups and then the 1/2 cup of oat flour. Just keep, now I'm still thinking, I might cut it back. I'd be tempted maybe to do a cup of almond flour and a cup of oat flour, just to kind of cut the almond flour a little bit, because almond flour and coconut flour is another one that are pretty dense, really tasty, really nutritionally good. And I have made biscuits with almond flour, and they're good. You end up with a really filling kind of product with almond flour, but delicious. All right, but yeah, maybe 1 cup and 1 cup of oat flour. So now a 1/2 cup of a cup of rolled oats. So a whole cup of rolled oats, and this is where we're really getting our Scottish origins in, right? And then again, I've reserved some rolled oats for the top, and that's 2 tablespoons there. Okay, so and then a little bit of salt, right? So a 1/2 teaspoon of salt here, and just put that right on top. And let's not forget the baking powder, 2.5 teaspoons. So the baking powder will leaven, and the egg white is going to give it a little rise also, but our main rise is coming from this baking powder. So the scone is a relative, and I think derived from the bannock in Scotland, and the bannock is a large, kind of a large scone that's just made on a griddle, so it doesn't go in the oven. And with that one, in Scotland, they'll often call a scone a bannock, and vice versa. But you can make a big scone a bannock, and then you cut it afterwards. Here we're going to be shaping and then baking. But another way to do it is just to bake a big piece and then you cut it up. And you could do that with this recipe. All right, so we've mixed all our dry ingredients. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the lemon and sugar mixture to those dry ingredients. And again, I'm going to use the whisk at this stage. And then I'll switch to a wooden spoon as we add the dry ingredients. The wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. And, well, all right, I forgot two things, but stirring utensils, very important. All right, so there we go. We have the sugar, the lemon zest, and all our dry ingredients. And so you can see this is coming together quickly. This is a really nice, I like making this recipe on a Sunday morning, kind of while I'm making my coffee. I can be putting this together, and it's a relaxing kind of breakfast item in that you can bake it early and then just let them cool to room temperature, and they're great that way. And so you don't, the timing is not so crucial. So here's that butter. This is chilled butter. It's good to, this is kind of like when you're making pie dough, you want chilled butter. It helps keep, what we're looking for here are layers of the butter to be in between the flour, and that's where you get your nice kind of layered, what am I looking for? Just the striation of lamination. Thank you. We have our culinary encyclopedia here on the side. So yeah, you get that nice lamination, and so that's what the cold is about. So you just have your butter chilled. We're using half a cube, so that's 4 tablespoons, and you'll often find that little chart on your deal here on the cube, and then and that also is 2 ounces. And so for something like this, I like to go ahead and cube the butter up a little bit, and then drop it into the dry ingredients. So this is what I do with a pie dough as well. All right, and just sprinkle that in there. And then, yes, we have a question. You could add walnuts. Really, you can, I mean, this is, you know, we're looking at berry scones here. But yeah, you could substitute or add in anything you like. You could add chocolate chips, you know, it'd be yummy. But yeah, any sort of, anything you can dream up. Once you, and that's where I was going with that. I guess feel about Sunday mornings and all that. Yes, you can also, the other relaxing thing about this recipe is once you get the hang of the technique, you can add anything you like. You could make ginger orange is a nice scone combo. You know, you can make savory scones for that matter, add a little bit of grated cheese and some fresh herbs, and then it would be really good with having with some soup, something like that. So this deal here is a pastry cutter, and this is a real handy tool for cutting butter into your dry ingredients. And so again, you're just looking to distribute that butter evenly all throughout the deal here. All right, so there you have it. So now the butter is in there. And so you're looking for that crumbly texture, and I think we've achieved crumbly. And now let's look at the egg. So we're going to separate this egg, but we want to use both, all of the egg. So I'm going to put the white into this bowl and mix the cream in there, and then that's going, and the honey, and that's going to be our liquid ingredient. And then I'm going to reserve the yolk, and that'll be part of our glaze. Okay, so a great way to crack an egg is just right on your countertop, keeping your hand around it. And usually that'll give you a nice straight line and you end up with not getting shell in your cooking vessel, what have you. Let's see, I'm kind of going back about this over the wrong bowl. Okay, and then there's this always, whoops, fun trick of breaking the whole egg. I thought that would happen because something that always does happen on live classes. Luckily, I have more eggs. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so let's get the white out. There we go. And then, woo, there we go. Oh. Does anyone want scrambled eggs? Yeah. All right, one more. I get 3 shots at this. This. All right, here we go. This is going to be the one. See, you can, and so scrambled eggs, if you do that, then scrambled eggs are a great thing to have with your scones, right? Here we go. I think I'm gonna make it this time. All right. So now we've got our yolk and our white and some extra eggs to play with. So here's the white, here's the yolk. Now, let's go ahead and mix the cream in there. So we're going to be using a cup of cream. And again, this is the Lulabelle's heavy whipping cream. And we just need 1 cup. And sometimes you get some of that good heavy cream clump, and that's okay. That's good stuff. All right. And just going to go ahead and mix that. And I'm just using a fork. You could use a whisk also here. And we have another question.
Someone just wanted to find out how else they can mix the butter in dry ingredients.
Oh yeah. Someone's asking other methods of mixing the butter into your dry ingredients. Yeah, a fork or 2 knives is a good method. You can even, you can use your fingers. You just want to be a little bit, you want to do that quickly because you don't want to warm the butter up too much. But yeah, a fork is a good tool. Also, if you have a bench knife, which we're going to be utilizing a bit, you can just use the bench knife and cut the butter in that way as well. But 2 butter knives is a good method. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we've got 2 tablespoons of honey. And so the honey adds a little sweet note, different from sugar. And also we're paying homage to the bees who helped produce all these beautiful berries. And we're doing this recipe in berry season. And here in Oregon, we have a lot of great berries that you can go out and find and pick at farms. And blueberries are happening right now. Here I have blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries. So a mixture of berries, or if you have a blackberry bush in your yard, it's a good way to use some of those blackberries. And so I'm just mixing that egg white, cream, and honey here. All right. And what the main challenge here is just getting that honey all mixed in. I think we've got it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put the wet ingredients into our crumbly mixture. And so at this point, I kind of start to think about when I want to drop the berries. And actually, before I go much further here, I should, I forgot I need to cut some strawberries, and we're going to look at that. So if you're using larger berries like strawberries, or I have some large blackberries here, which I might cut in half, you just want to cut them up. And I have raspberries as well. And so we're going to kind of try to get them all into that size of the raspberry. So maybe the blackberries cut in half. Strawberries, I'm simply hulling them, which is taking the stem off. And then I'm going to cut them to a similar size to the raspberries. And we're looking at about 1.5 cups of fruit. I often add a little extra fruit, just, you know, you don't want to add too much extra because it will increase the moisture level of the overall recipe a little bit. And it looks like we have another question. Yes? Yeah, frozen fruit will work great for this, and berries freeze so well. If you do go berry picking, it's really a great thing to, you can spread. What I do with berries is I will rinse them and then I'll spread them out on a sheet like this. And I have like a silpat, you know, the silpats, that kind of rubbery baking sheet cover, kind of like the parchment paper, right? And I'll spread it on that, but you could use parchment paper or nothing at all. But what's neat about the silpat is you can pull it up, and then after the berries are frozen, it's real easy to get them off the sheet. But what I do is I spread them and IQF them individually quick freeze, and then put them in a bag like a Ziploc, and then you have your fresh summer berries that you can utilize into the winter. And that's a good way to go. With the frozen berries, you want to put them in frozen. And you can even, one little trick with that as well is to kind of just dust them in a little bit of flour. And that helps just keep them from juicing out into your mixture. All right, so here we go with our first cup of goods. And so I'm going to go ahead and add some berries even before all my liquid is added here, and start folding them in. And also then I'll bring the rest of the liquid. So that's sort of up to your, your intuition on this part as to when you want to start adding the berries. I don't get too, one thing about the frozen berries that's kind of cool is you won't crush them, right? They'll stay nice and whole for you while you're mixing. With the fresh berries, you're going to crush a few, and so I know that now going into this, and I don't get too upset, and I know they're going to get a little bit crushed here and there, and that's fine. You get sort of a rainbow of color, and you'll get, when with the blackberries, you'll get a little bit of purple here and there, and that's all right. But they do remain pretty nice and whole for the most part. But expect a little bit of crushed berries. Okay, now, as I mentioned before, you will find you might need to add a little extra liquid. And so At this point, I'll add maybe up to a tablespoon of cream. And you just want enough to absorb for the remaining flour mixture to absorb. The scone, you want kind of a crumbly dough for sure. Scones are infamous, right, for being a little bit drier. They're not supposed to be a muffin. And that's what makes them such a great accompaniment for like a tea or coffee, because they're a little bit drier and they make you want to drink a beverage, and that's why they're the friend of the coffee shop. Okay, and so when it just starts to pull together like this, we can roll them out. And so I'm just going to pat it out with my hands. You could use a rolling pin though. And we're looking, so you want to get plenty of flour down. And I'm going to go onto this cutting board. And then when it comes to cutting and shaping, I can use a knife. You can also, of course, do this directly on your countertop, and that's a good place to do it. And then when you go to cut, if you have one of these deals, this is really handy for cutting doughs on countertops because it doesn't wreck your countertop. But it will cut the dough really nicely. And you can also transfer the dough to a cutting board to cut your scone shapes. Okay, so here we're just going to pat it. And for this method, I'm making a square. And so I flip it a couple times, and you go keep your hands nice and floured. And so if you want to use a rolling pin, you can roll it, and that's probably a wise way to do this. But it's kind of fun to do with your hands. And we're looking for about 1 inch thickness. And I actually brought a measuring tape because that makes me feel like I'm really building something here. I think I brought out a measuring tape for one other class. I can't remember what it was, but it was dough related. And yeah, we're just looking for about 1 inch. So here's the old measuring tape. And that's about 1 inch there. So you just want to get it nice and even so they cook evenly. And then what's neat about this also is you can get the nice square edge out of this. And then I'm going to kind of go around, lift it a little bit. And you can see how we have some pretty colors happening here from those berries. Okay, so now we're going to cut this into 8 pieces and get some triangles. Oh wait, first we're going to glaze it. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's go ahead and make our glaze. So I have the egg yolk there, and then we're going to put 2 tablespoons or 1 tablespoon of cream, I guess. Let's see, where is that? One tablespoon of cream. And there we go. And again, you could use a fork to break that egg yolk and get the cream and the egg yolk mixed. Now, this glaze is really great because it does a couple things. One, we'll sprinkle the sugar and the rolled oats on here, and they'll stick to it. It's going to give us some color, and then also it's going to make a really nice texture on top. And it gives, because it's cream and egg yolk, it adds a really good rich flavor also. And you want to use all of that. So really get it in there and go around the side if you can. And get it all on there. And now we'll put a tablespoon of sugar. This is just granulated sugar all across the top, and you want to get every inch of that scone. Okay, and there's the sugar, and now the oats. And this is 2 tablespoons of rolled oats. And again, we're just looking for even distribution. And those will stick. And one thing I've done is you can go over it with something like a spatula, just lightly press those oats in a little bit, and that helps keep them on there as you're cutting and manipulating your shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut them now. So for the triangles, we're going to cut the square in half, and then half again across. And then you cut each of those quadrants in half to create triangles. And then you can lift those with a spatula, or if you have one of these pastry knives, bench knives, then use that. And then we'll just place it onto our baking sheet. Okay, so of course, you know, this is a really quick and easy way to shape your scones, but you could do a different shape, and often you'll see scones that are in a circle, and you can just use like a mason jar is a good thing. And I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice one of these quadrants to demonstrate that. So there's a nice circular scone, and that's a real classic shape also. And it looks like we have a question.
Can you substitute brown or raw sugar instead of using white sugar?
Yes, you can substitute brown sugar. It might make a little bit of a difference in texture. Brown sugar tends to make your your dough a little softer when it cooks, but I think it would be fine. And again, yeah, just stick to that same amount of sugar. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll do, and then you could do like mini scones too if you had a smaller circle. You know, we'll do a couple more triangles here, and then we can pop these in our oven. All right, so that's what the scones look like. Now they're going to rise a little bit and spread out a little bit, so you want to leave some room in between them on your baking sheet. Now, they'll bake for 20 to 25 minutes. You're looking for sort of a golden brown, and you want them to, they'll be a little soft when they come out of the oven, and they'll firm out up as they cool. I think we have another question.
Any suggestions?
Oh, yeah. Yes, if you have an egg allergy, you can use an egg replacer. I have heard that there's a formula on like the Bob's Red Mill egg replacer where you can make an egg white or an egg yolk. So you could definitely do that for both of the parts of the egg here. You know, and follow those directions, water to egg replacer ratio, and that should keep your liquid in line as well. You can also, this recipe will work without that egg in there. You can leave the egg white out entirely, and then you would, you might have to, you'd probably bring the cream up just a little bit. And there is that time, you know, at the end where I added a little extra cream, so you just add a little extra. And again, it's just, you just want to get a crumbly dough, not wet, but just to where it sticks together. And then for the top, if you're using 0 egg and no egg replacer, nothing like that, then you just brush it with cream. I've done that a lot with scones, where I'll just brush it, glaze it with cream. And then you can sprinkle your stuff on, and it works well also. All right, let's see what we've got in the oven. Let's pretend 25 minutes have gone by. And voila, here we go, some nice scones. And so this is what they'll come out like. And that's all there is to it. These are good for several days. Yeah, I usually just wrap them in a little tin foil, or you could put them in a Tupperware, something like that. They can stay at room temperature. But they're really nice, fresh, of course. And there's a question of can you freeze them? And sure, you could freeze these. You just want to put them in like a Ziploc bag and get the air out, and then they'd freeze all right, you know. And then you could pull them out as you like. Maybe heat them up a little bit, give them warm them up, and they'd be delicious that way. And that's about what I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I always love doing these classes. Coming up next week, we're doing the nutrition class that's all about smoothie bowls and beyond. And that sounds intriguing. And then on a Friday, the 11th of next month, we're going to be looking at a really great peanut noodle recipe with grilled chicken. And then the following Wednesday, we'll be doing a strawberry olive oil cake, again celebrating berries. And then we shall be looking at some kofta kebabs. Again, thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Sam. I'm working for Basics Market. We have 4 locations: Sandy Boulevard in Portland, Hillsdale on Capitol Highway, downtown on Lovejoy and 13th. And then we have a meat market featuring all our meats that we raise ourselves in Beaverton on Canyon Road. Please visit all these locations, pick up some ingredients, pick up some more recipes, and I look forward to seeing you at the next class. Thank you so much. Happy cooking.